Ferrari haven't won a world championship since 2008. Since then, they've come close but have failed to capitalise on their chances. But is Ferrari in the best shape to challenge for and win the 2022 World Championship? Let's have a look. My name's Andy and this is Behind the Drive. This video will look at the three key factors that will put Ferrari in a good place to win the World Championship in 2022 when compared with their rivals. I'll look at the development race with the new regulations on the horizon and the team's driver lineup and how this could be the reason that they are best placed to capitalise on the new regulations for next season. The 2022 development race. 2022 represents the biggest challenge to the Formula 1 regulations in 40 years. This means that it's more likely than ever that we'll see a significant shift in the order of the teams next year. As a result, this season has been fascinating to watch, as the balancing act between the development of this year's car and next year's car has been a challenge for each of the teams. This has also been exacerbated by the new budget cap, which the teams have to work within for the first time in 2021, and the teams with massive budgets can't just spend their way out of the problem. Ferrari had a disappointing 2020 season, where their power unit failed to deliver on expectations, resulting in a 6th place finish in the Constructors' Championship. This year has seen a remarkable improvement in all departments, with the team sitting 3rd in the Constructors' Championship after 11 rounds, and they remain locked in a close battle with McLaren for that spot. In the power unit department, Ferrari have seen a huge improvement compared to 2020, and given the engine regulations are remaining static for 2022, the team have actually announced that they are improving this department further in the latter stages of the 2021 season. Mattia Binotto has told the media that the team will be bringing upgrades later in the season in order to gain some insight into their 2022 engine and beyond. This will also support Ferrari's challenge for the top 3 this year, as their competitors are more likely to remain with the same spec cars over the second half of this season. But alongside this, the team made the call to switch their aerodynamic development focus to next season early. This means that they're likely to have dedicated more of their restricted resources to next year's car than many other teams, including, most importantly, their main competition in Red Bull and Mercedes, who have been forced into concentrating on the title fight this year. As of Monaco, Leclerc stated that the Ferrari team were 90 to 95% focused on 2022 already, which was then reiterated by team personnel. It's clear that Ferrari are in Formula 1 to win races and championships, and that last season did hurt the team, but the most successful constructor in Formula 1 history still knows how to win, and there's no doubt that they'll return to the top of the sport at some point. By putting their focus into 2022, it shows that this year is just the warm-up. They've shown that they've been able to recover their engine deficit from last year, and now they're 100% focused on delivering the best possible car next year. They've even stated that if they fall back this year, they won't try to recover it. Although this is unlikely given the other teams have done the same and switched their focus. So what puts Ferrari at an advantage over the other teams? Well, I think there are 3 factors that help the Italian team. Number 1 is the fact that their main rivals, Red Bull and Mercedes, are locked in a championship fight which looks like it will go down to the wire. As I've already mentioned, this means that they'll have more dedicated resource to this year's car than the Ferrari team. Red Bull's Max Verstappen has stated on many occasions that he and the team will continue to focus on this year's car as they have the best opportunity to beat the Mercedes team for the first time in the turbo hybrid era. However, they run the risk of overdeveloping their car this year to then put themselves on the back foot for next season. The team have had this happen to them before, with their 2013 car being overdeveloped, with Sebastian Vettel winning every single race following the summer break. But in 2014, they fell back and ended up almost 300 points behind Mercedes. The Mercedes team have also been focused on this year's car for a longer period of time than they probably would have wanted. They did state that they switched their focus to the 2022 car in Monaco, but they still had parts that were going through the design phase and then added to their car as late as the British Grand Prix in July. The team knows how to win through changes in aerodynamic regulations, and based on the ethos of the team, they will prioritise next season, given there's more of an opportunity to win longer term if they get next year right. But will this year's championship and the fact that Red Bull are continuing to develop their car be enough to mean that they keep an eye on the W12? So Ferrari, who won't be worried about this championship fight, are in prime position to capitalise on the teams ahead of them not having as much time or resources going into their car. The second reason that Ferrari have an advantage over the other teams is the fact that they have some of the best technical designers in the sport. There is no team that's been more successful than the Prancing Horses, as they've won 238 races and 16 constructors' titles. They have a strong technical team which has kept them near the front for a long period of time, which is why disappointing seasons such as last year are few and far between. And at the same time, the team is desperate to continue their recovery from their worst performance since 1980. The reason for Ferrari having some talented technical designers is their heritage and the fact that before this year, the team's budget was one of the highest in the sport, estimated at over $400 million a year. That kind of money to spend on their Formula 1 team is absolutely insane, but they could recruit the best people into their team. So compared to many of their rivals, they've had a historic financial advantage, and while that financial advantage doesn't exist anymore, the majority of the team personnel is still there, and developing what could well become the best car on the grid next year. And that brings me nicely onto the third reason that Ferrari have an advantage over the other teams, and that's the fact that they have more wind tunnel and CFD testing runs than the front runners, due to the new aerodynamic testing regulations. Finishing 6th in the Constructors' Championship last year means that for the first half of this year at least, the team had 41 wind tunnel runs per week, compared to Mercedes' 36. At the end of June, these testing rules did switch to the 2021 Championship standings, meaning that the Ferrari team advantage has been reduced somewhat. But given they were in 4th position at the time, they still have an advantage over Mercedes, Red Bull and McLaren, but this has shrunk since the early stage of the season. So with a good team of aerodynamicists and the development time advantage, coupled with the fact that the team's main rivals are battling each other, means that the Ferrari team have an advantage going into next year. But that's not the only point to look at, given the team's other winter upgrade: the best driver lineup in Formula 1. Before the delayed 2020 season even began, the Ferrari team had been grabbing the headlines with their early move in the driver market for this season. The team dropped the 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel, who had been with the team since 2015. He was replaced by Carlos Sainz, a driver who's a bit of an unknown quantity in Formula 1, but was in good form after 2 strong seasons with McLaren. Bringing the Spaniard in to replace Sebastian Vettel was a risk. After all, Vettel is one of the most experienced drivers on the grid, whereas Sainz has never won a race, and at the time had just scored a single podium during his year at McLaren. But it's a risk that has paid off, as Sainz has done well to get up to speed, and is currently even ahead of his teammate in the championship standings. He's delivered 2 podiums for Ferrari so far, with a 2nd place finish in Monaco and a 3rd place finish in Hungary. But it's the performances more generally that have been so impressive. Even when Carlos Sainz doesn't have the best qualifying, he can still carve his way through the field into the top 7 more often than not. This is exactly what he needs to be doing to secure his future with the team. He's given them no reason to look elsewhere or pick a driver from the team's academy, which is bursting at the seams with young talent. Sainz's performances have been a particular highlight for Ferrari this year, and bringing him into that team has marked the start of their recovery, just as it did for McLaren when he joined that team in 2019. He's also willing to play the team game, as he reluctantly gave up his position for Leclerc in Portimao to give the Monegasque driver a chance on the fresher tyres, meaning he's able to see the bigger picture during races. Going forwards, I expect Sainz to continue to deliver. There's no reason for him not to do so, and if Ferrari are serious about their future prospects, then they'll renew his contract for the coming years. You then have Charles Leclerc, a driver who's been with Ferrari for almost 3 seasons now, and he's delivered on everyone's expectations once again. He's a driver that's capable of winning a world championship with the right machinery, and he's even put his Ferrari car on pole positions on 2 occasions in 2021. This year, he's had some bad luck, with 2 retirement/non-starts over the course of this season so far, both of which were somewhat out of the Monegasque driver's control. I don't have much more to say about Leclerc. He's doing a great job, and relating to the point that I made about Carlos Sainz earlier, he too has been in a position where he's given up his position at the Austrian Grand Prix in order to help the team. So this Ferrari driver pairing, whilst being one of the youngest in the team's history, is also one that has massive potential. It's a positive relationship between these 2 talented drivers for now, as the team continue to have lower expectations following the disappointments of 2020. If they're battling each other for a world championship, this could easily become toxic, but right now it seems like the team's dynamic is a positive one, and bringing Carlos Sainz into the fold has been a huge factor in that. it puts them in a fantastic position looking forward to 2022. So we've seen that the Ferrari team are in a position to create a car which is capable of fighting for the World Championship, and actually even have an advantage over some of the other front-running teams in the sport. We've also seen that the driver lineup at Ferrari is top-notch, and is probably the strongest on the grid, with huge potential for both drivers to improve. There are some downs, perhaps the fact that the team's leadership and drivers failed to deliver a World Championship in 2018 when they had a car that might have been capable of doing so. But times have changed. We're entering a new era of Formula 1, and the Ferrari team personnel have the opportunity to learn from the 2020 dip in form and come out of this to be the strongest team in 2022. The Italian team has won many World Championships before, and will do it again, and I think that 2022 could well be their year. That's my view on Ferrari and their prospects for next year. What do you think of Ferrari's chances? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.